This show is all about interviewing interesting people and learning. In this episode, we're going to be talking about sexual assault, abuse, and a serial killer. So if those topics are upsetting to you, then this episode is not for you. Many know about Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer and cannibal. Now, for sure, we know that he murdered 17 people, but there are many other victims out there. Billy Capshaw is one victim who survived. He was roommates with Jeffrey Dahmer in the Army before Dahmer went to Milwaukee and began that well-known killing spree. Billy is joining me now. Billy, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we talk about your experience with Dahmer, which happened in the Army, in the military, just talk to me about your upbringing and why you decided to join the Army.
My upbringing, there was 8 kids in my family, counting me. I had 5 sisters and 2 brothers. We had a really good life. There was nothing that I could tell that was wrong. My mother and father got divorced when I was like 3 years old, but you know, other than that, didn't even faze me. You know, it didn't bother me. So, you know, we used to go to his house in the summer times and at Mama's in the you know, during the school year.
And you grew up in Arkansas, small town Arkansas, right?
Small town Arkansas. Fun fact, the house I'm at right now is 6 blocks from where Bill Clinton grew up.
Got it.
Yeah, it's St. Town.
And how old were you when you decided to join the Army, and why?
I was 16 years old, and I decided to join, so I went to the recruiter, and he told me to come back when I was 17 and, you know, tried to talk my mother into it. And we were really strapped for money. My sister, Debbie, had gotten sick. She had a congenital heart defect. And they flew her to a medical center in Chicago and tried to fix her. While she was up there, I joined the Army and left. And I was supposed to send money home to help. You know, it was going to be $200. I made $303 my first check. And that was the reason.
And that was a lot of money back then for you and your family.
Sure. I mean, what I remember, we could make a huge pot of spaghetti, for example, with everything in it for like $2 feeds us all, you know?
Yeah.
So that, you know, $200 was, yeah, it was a lot of money.
When we go back to Dahmer, now I just want to remind the audience here that Dahmer killed and he dismembered 17 men and boys. That happened between 1978 and 1991. He performed acts of cannibalism, and he also preserved his victims' body parts. Right. It's like almost impossible to even comprehend. Tracy Edwards was able to escape Dahmer, and thank God that happened in 1991. And because of Edwards, Dahmer was eventually caught. There was a murder in 1978 that Dahmer committed before he joined the Army. And then Dahmer joined the Army in 1979. And then, Billy, that is when you guys crossed paths.
I joined in 79 as well. It was October 79. And I got stationed in Germany after I finished boot camp and advanced individual training, they call it AIT, at Fort Sam Houston. I went to South Carolina. They shipped me there, and then I got on a plane and off to Germany I go. And when I got there, he was one of the first people that I met.
And you were a medic, and he was also
a medic. Yeah. He was a medic as well. We were both trained as combat medics.
Okay, so you first meet him. What do you remember about that meeting?
He's a nice guy, full of charm. I trusted him the whole 9 yards, you know.
Did you
He
shake
kind
hand?
of
Did you shake hands? Do you remember
we
like?
shook hands, and we were introduced to each other by another soldier that thought we'd be good roommates. And come to find out later, I found out the reason they wanted me in there. I was the youngest guy. It's because nobody else wanted to be in there. So, you know, he was constantly drinking. They never said anything to me about any of that stuff when I got there about him.
Hmm.
You know, kind of pawned me off on the serial killer.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion of it.
And obviously they didn't know he was a serial killer at the time, or going to be a serial killer. Okay,
No,
so how many days in did he go from this charismatic figure to this abusive psycho?
like in my mind, it was the first or the second day. I want to say the first. And I got there in February, and I have a record. It says 17-year-old male, and it has my name on it, but it says February, but it doesn't have an exact date. But right after I got there, he tied me up. I'm skipping a lot of stuff. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we had a fight, and I was drugged and tied up and raped. That night, when I got loose, is when I jumped out the window. To make a long story short, I was beat, raped, and jumped out the window and fractured my pelvis and my left hip.
And so in this terror, you thought the only way to escape was to jump out of a window
Yes.
and almost die yourself.
I'm not very. I just want to tell everybody I'm not real good with the dates because of all the drugs, but it was the first or second day that I was there in that room.
Previously, you had said that before he tied you up, that he would beat you.
Oh, and that's another thing. The whole thing about that uh, that bothers me so much is he either beat me before or after he raped me, and I have no clue why, unless I had a very good doctor, Dr. Waterman, that took me under his wing for about 26 years, and that's very confusing.
Yeah.
It was like, to me, at the time, I had to be very careful, so I had to watch him constantly, and that's what my focus was, to stay alive. That's my was the whole thing. He took my clothes away from me. He did the whole 9 yards. I believe I sent you a picture of me with a robe on, and you know it's really a strange story, I know, but you know things do happen. I mean, he joined the military, and he just did anything he wanted, and that's where that charm came in.
The other thing
And
too, Billy, I want to interrupt. The thing that I know that a lot of people, especially now, because I don't think, especially younger people nowadays, they don't understand that if you are maybe abused or if you are sexually assaulted, that you would be able to go and tell someone. And even in the Army, you would be able to go and tell someone and get help. But tell me about the time period. Let me know, let's set the stage here. What was going
if
on
you
back then, and why did no one listen to you about what was happening to you and what Jeffrey
right,
Dahmer was doing to you in the military?
I begged and begged and begged for somebody to listen to me. Uh, the reason why, that back then it was post Vietnam. Vietnam had been over for 4 or 5 years, and everybody in there, a lot of people in there, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of the people were trying to come down. They were still in the military from Vietnam, from being in combat in Vietnam, and it was just It was very, very bad to be a gay person. You were not allowed in the military if you were gay. Uh, if you told, if you said something about rape, they kicked you out of the military with a bad conduct discharge, which kind of ruins your life,
Mm-hmm.
But I knew all that stuff from going through boot camp, and I'm a heterosexual male. So I did tell people, and uh, people, they did a rape kit, and then it's like they didn't care about me anymore after that.
Yeah.
It's just they just let it continue.
And
So
at one point, a nurse had said that even rape kits at that time were just thrown out.
tossed, and I'll explain to you what the thinking was on that. Back then, they didn't have DNA. They had whether or not you were a secreter or a non-secreter. A secreter is 80% of the people of the population. A non-secreter is 20% of the population. And what that means is a secreter has their blood type in body fluids, such as semen or tears or something like that, just other body fluids other than blood. And that's how they used to gather evidence. Hair evidence was no good. I don't even know how they secured a conviction of any rapist back then.
Yeah.
I guess they relied a lot on beating on people and getting confessions,
Yeah. You believe that you were like Jeffrey Dahmer's guinea pig
I was.
before he really started getting going with his killing spree.
Right. I believe that he used me to his advantage, that he used me for his weird, insane stuff. He tried to take my prostate out. I have
Oh my God.
a stab mark underneath my scrotum. I have stab marks in my chest. I have, and he liked to use ice picks and things like
Oh
that.
my
And
God.
the reason why I found out later is because it's less bleeding.
You said that he was using like ice picks on
Yes, he
you.
had,
And how did you survive? You were with this psycho for 18 months in a room. Like you were roommates with Jeffrey Dahmer. How did you survive, Billy?
God, and I wanted my mother, I wanted to go home, and just praying a lot. Basically, I did not want to die. I thought, I was going to kill him. I had planned it, and just he was causing me so much pain, and I just wanted it to stop.
I know that you had spoken and talked about it with Dr. Waterman, that there was almost a level of like Stockholm Syndrome where
Right.
you kind of tried, that was your survival skill with him. Do you believe that
That was right.
that
Very
was the
correct.
case?
I believe that to be true. And that goes with kind of like a domestic violence situation. A lot of people are in that, mostly 90% women, and they get beat by their husbands, but they have nowhere to go, and some really other stuff I don't want to talk about on TV. But I do my I'm an advocate for sexual trauma victims, human trafficking victims, and domestic violence victims.
There was another man that you'd spoken about named Paul, and then Dahmer and Paul kind of had a thing going on in Germany.
Paul was gay.
Yeah.
Paul was gay, and I didn't know Jeff was gay. I kind of figured he was because of the way that he was in the room. He would act like kind of had those female type. I watched him all the time.
But
he was kind of prissy, like a woman.
Do you think though that Paul is ultimately why Dahmer was pulled from your room eventually, and Paul kind of was in a more superior role and that was why Dahmer was eventually pulled from your room?
Yes, I think so.
So Billy, you were honorably discharged in 1981. What did you do when you were discharged? And did you go straight home, or like, and you're still a young man at this time?
Right. I was like 20 years old. Uh, I went to my mother's house where I left from. I was really sick, and I I was so sick that I could barely talk or anything, and I basically isolated for about 5 years. Yeah,
And
and
you didn't tell her anything about the details
no,
about
big,
what happened.
and I tell you, my mother was not pushy because I have I had 9 uncles that were in World War II, and you know, cousins and all. My whole family was military except for the women.
Hmm.
So uh, they didn't push, you know. And my mother, bless her heart, is a good woman, you
Yeah.
know. But she knew something terrible had happened, but she didn't make me tell her. You know, she didn't push me to tell her. Is what I'm trying to say.
When did you find Dr. Waterman in Arkansas? And that was when you started the process of
Right,
healing from
right.
your experience with
I
Jeffrey Dahmer.
I was going to my a family practitioner from about 85 until well, a couple of years from that. He was prescribing antidepressants, anxiolytics, which are, you know, like Valium and stuff like that. I wasn't getting any better. My aunt, I have had a cousin, she's passed on now, who was schizophrenic. She said, "Well, why don't you go see Dr. Waterman? I know him." So that's how I found him,
Mm.
and he just he was God sent, you know, special man.
And you believe he saved your life.
He saved my life, and he passed away in 2008, and I miss him so
Mm.
much. He was
So,
more than just a doctor.
and he eventually you were able to share the horrific things. I mean, aside from the beatings and everything else, you were eventually able to
Right.
share the real horrific
It's hard.
details with him.
Right. It's hard work is what it is.
How long did
And
you
then
work with him?
how long did I see Dr. Waterman?
Mm-hmm.
Like 26 years.
Hmm.
Yeah. It takes a long time to say those things.
Yeah.
And I was so sick, I didn't even know my own name hardly, you
Wow.
know, and I was drinking at the same time, you know. I found my cure in alcohol,
Mm.
so it wasn't the right one, but
Well,
you know,
I
it's
don't think anyone would blame you for what you'd been through. In 1991, Jeffrey Dahmer is caught, and
mhm.
the world is absolutely stunned. Where were you when you heard about it, and what was your
I was
reaction?
in jail. I was in jail. I had been accused of letting my car get away from me when I was drinking.
So when you heard, though, that Jeffrey Dahmer was charged with all of these crimes and just the details of these crimes, what was your reaction to that?
Mm, scared that he was loose again. You know, he visited my house in Hot Springs, Arkansas. He was on his way back from Dallas, Texas in 1982. My mother met him and my sister met him. I, I,
Was he
I
stalking
did.
you?
I guess so. You know,
Wow.
I don't know, but you know, Mom said she talked to him. It's on this video, and my sister Debbie was there that day. I ran. I,
Hmm.
you know, I went to my father's for probably, you know, a couple of weeks. He never came back, so that's how that happened.
Did
Yeah.
Did you believe that he could do all of that? I mean, knowing, spending the 18 months that you did with him, did you believe that he could do
Really,
something like
I
that?
knew he could kill somebody, but I did not know he could kill so many,
Hmm.
you know. And there were other murders in Germany. And I'll tell you something that really strikes me as kind of funny. Why did they put me in the room with a guy? And I was talking about earlier about them putting me in the room with a serial killer. He was under investigation for killing a man by the name of Hans.
Hmm.
Hans was last saw with Jeffrey Dahmer, and he disappeared. They found him somewhere. That was before I got there, mutilated,
Hmm.
and they had 4 or 5 women that were found mutilated. They had a couple other people that were found mutilated.
Yeah.
The investigator I talked to said the murder started when he got to the base and they stopped when he left.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
you learned that he was killed in jail, what was your reaction to that?
I wish I could have done it myself. And I also couldn't believe that he was dead at the time. I wasn't fully I wanted to see his body
Yeah.
because he had tricked me so many times, I mean, if I don't know, trauma does some strange things to you.
Yeah.
Sexual trauma and torture. My military papers say torture, but when you get tortured, raped, and drugged, it'll do some strange things to your mind.
Yeah.
Like you can't believe the person's actually dead. I couldn't believe he was dead.
It's unbelievable that just like this one guy here, and the chances that you became roommates with him
Very bizarre.
altered your life forever. Altered your life forever.
Yes, yes, yeah. I've kind of got to, people used to introduce me as the Jeffrey Dahmer roommate. I kind of made them stop doing that, And I've been called names, so, people beat me up on the internet. But, hey, I'm going to continue and I'm going to keep going.
Why would anyone beat you up on the internet? I don't understand that.
Well, if you look at the comments, I mean,
don't look at the comments, Billy. But why? I don't understand that though. Why? You did nothing wrong.
No, I didn't. But there's sympathizers out there. Yeah, I just looked at one today. She's on Facebook. She's got what do they call it when they put you beside somebody in a picture? Photoshop. She's got some Photoshop photos on her Facebook where she's hugging Jeff and she's in different situations with Jeff. Yeah.
A Jeffrey Dahmer sympathizer. So you're sympathizing with a murderer, a cannibal. I mean, are you kidding me? A rapist?
And
What?
I'll give you something else. They have a tour in Milwaukee. I called and asked them to please stop, but they were doing tours, and explaining the whole Jeffrey Dahmer thing, just cleaning up on money. And I think it might still be going. When I was in Milwaukee last, it was still there. I would go there for.
And so for you moving forward, and how old are you, Billy, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 62. Over half my life has been getting better. I'm just now waking up from all the trauma. And, it's hard to explain how I remember this movie, Baby Steps. They had this thing, Baby Steps, and it really kind of is. But if you get treated immediately, I don't think it's not going to last as long. You need to be treated immediately. You got a psychologist, sociologist. All these people need to be there for you. That's what they get paid for.
Billy, thank you for sharing your story with me and, of course, our audience right here. And I want to thank you for watching this episode of The Curious Bee with Ellen McNamara. We have more free episodes on Fox Local, on YouTube, and also on our website. Thank you very much. And if you need help, there is help available for you.